Hello, church. Hello to those who may be watching as well. Like to come to you from outside today, but it's raining a little bit right now. We've been thankful for this warmer string of weather, though. And today I was thinking just about love. This week it's the Passion Week. It's when we're remembering the events of what Christ did as Palm Sunday as he entered the city, and then of course Good Friday's coming up here at the end of the week as we think about the Last Supper, as well as his crucifixion, and then of course Sunday, the resurrection, and all of that has within it, of course, the backdrop of the Jewish Passover. In fact, they're celebrating that right now. I believe it starts this evening. And remembering in that the time when Israel was in Egypt, and the blood was put on the doorpost and on the lintel as well, and then the death angel passed over that, and then focusing on Christ as our sacrifice, satisfying the wrath of God, and that his wrath has passed over us, and Christ himself has taken that, endured that for us. All the actions, though, that we think about this week were based in, or that are focused really on love. In fact, God's love. God in love sent his Son, who took on human form, became the sacrifice for our sin. Jesus in love obeyed the Father, carried out this plan to the end, knowing exactly what he'd face through the week. He knew exactly what he was going to endure, but he did it anyway. And while love, is that quality of God is highlighted a lot today. And then that's good. It's great that we focus on the love of God. That's not his only quality. But it is one that we often highlight. And we have to couple with that the fact that God calls us to love one another in the same way that he does, in a holy way, in a righteous way, also in a sacrificial way too. Matthew chapter 22, verses 34 to 40. I'm just thinking through some of these popular passages about love in the Gospels specifically, that we're called to love God with our whole being, loving him in such a way that puts his will ahead of our own, his desires ahead of our own. They become a priority in our life. To love him in this way means that we obey the commands he has given, knowing he's not just doing them because he wants to, or to impose some sort of tyrannical rule or something like that on us. He's doing it because he is a good God. He brings these things because he knows that they are best for us. And so my love for him obeys those things, knowing he has my best at heart. God calls us to love one another. I was watching a video today, and in fact last week as well, just about the art of neighboring right now. And in Luke's gospel, and I forget the chapter right now off the top of my head, you've had that happen too, right? We see, though, that Jesus defines who that neighbor is as he tells the parable of the Good Samaritan, who the Good Samaritans were really the scum of the earth, if you will, for Jews at the time. They were the undesirables, so to speak, but he uses that as an example to show the people about love and what it means to be a good neighbor. Jesus told his disciples that as they were seated around the table during the Last Supper, that they were to show the same kind of love toward one another that he had shown them. That their love for one another would be an important mark of their identity in him. In fact, Paul draws that out in Romans as well. And today I was thinking about these calls to love God, to love one another, to love even our enemies, which we see in Luke's gospel. In the present circumstances that we're facing around the world, and in my general studies as well this week, I'm just thinking through all of those things combined together, and posing this question of how do we show our love under these present special circumstances? How do we do that? Because normally when we think about love, we think about perhaps the Hollywood version of it, right? In which it's the mooey gushy I found the one true love of my life. Of course, that's not the love that the Gospels portray, and that's not the love that God shows us. But we often think of it in a manner in which we have to have that social interaction with one another. when we have to, shake a hand, or we have to give a hug, or there has to be that physical presence, and that's an important part of it. Yes, Jesus was about relationships, and loving one another is about those relational aspects in a physical presence. Yes, but at the same time, at this point in time, when we've been called to practice social distancing, we've not been called to practice social isolation. We may be more restricted to our homes presently, but we can still love one another. We can leave a note in a neighbor's door. We can run an errand and pick up some groceries for someone, if you can do that. And I understand there's some health concerns for some folks in doing that. Or we can just simply say, hey, we're praying for them. I know for some of ours, as we've been out on walks, it's saying hi across the street to them, and saying and having a short conversation. Never underestimate those simple 1 minute or so conversations with people, and the impact, especially right now, that they can have on encouraging folks at this time. In fact, you can find a PDF on our website just below this video if you're on our website currently. That gives some practical tips. I actually borrowed this from somebody else, so I don't claim credit for it, but there's some good questions and some practical tips on how we can love our neighbors in this time in which we're social distancing. Also, a call, an email, a text to a brother or sister in Christ. It is easy to care about ourselves in this time, isn't it? Especially when we're tempted to fear. And in fear, we often revert to ourselves. And how do we care for ourselves? But agape love thinks beyond ourselves. And beyond checking in with people, I know my family in particular has been coloring pages for people. We've been making little pictures with a short note on it, just saying, hey, we love you, we're praying for you, we miss you. Just something to brighten people's day. And it gives us a chance to interact as a family. It gives us to teach our kids about what we can do to show in very simple ways the love of Christ to those around us, as well as to brighten someone's day. And again, we're practicing social distancing right now. It's not social isolation. This time has, as I've talked with Paul before, has caused us to really rethink on how we do things, and consider the forms that we normally do are not there. We can't interact with them presently, or we can't use them presently, but we can still show the love of Christ in meaningful ways to one another as we get creative, as we think outside the box, as we do a little research, and more importantly than all of that, asking God to give us the ideas on how to show His love, which is really the love He's already shown us, but how to show that to those around us. Think today how you can encourage someone, how you can show them the love of Christ. God bless.